Let's make a wool dress for a porcelain doll. Hi everyone, I'm Caitlin. I teach old-fashioned sewing skills, and today we're going to make a dress for my reproduction 1860s doll. So we have made most of her underpinnings on the channel. We made her a dress last month, a sheer dress, and this time we're going to make her a wool dress. So I have here some very nice light gray wool. It's actually slated to be a dress for me. I have a whole lot of it. I just haven't quite figured out what time frame I want a wool dress for, so it's being saved, but I have extra. So we're going to go ahead and make ourselves a little doll dress with it. And then I have a bunch of bright cherry red soutache braid. We'll be using an 1860s publication, The House Book of Pleasure and Instruction, and it has a whole chapter on dressing dolls. And actually very specifically, the first dress that is mentioned for the doll clothing, after all the underpinnings, is a merino, aka a wool, dress. So we're going to follow that pattern and that instruction today. It says print or merino frock with a full body. It actually has very few instructions with it. It says fold the piece for the body in front, in four, and cut it out according to the pattern. Gather it along the top and bottom and put it into a narrow band. The sleeves must be gathered and put into the armholes, while the straight part is set into a narrow band. This dress should be worn with a band and buckle, or if of merino, a sash may be made of the same material and tied at the side with a bow. So I have a picture of what it should look like. Now I want a very full frock, so I'm going to measure the fullest part, 12 inches. Oh, it's going to take more than I thought it would. And I'm completely guessing as far as this goes. I don't know how this is supposed to. Now I could very well take this pattern, grade it up, and then cut it out, but we're just going to guess. So that is two sleeves. They are roughly 8 inches long, 8.5 inches long, sorry. And at their tallest, about 5 1/4. Alright, now there's no directions given for the skirt. However, my last dress I made 36 inches wide, and that worked fairly well. So we'll make this 36 inches wide as well. Now I do want to figure out how long to make the skirt, because last time we made the whole dress in one. Over the hoop, 13 inches, we're going to cut it. Let's go ahead and cut it 15 inches. It's no issue, it's a little bit short. We're going to cut the bodice now, and some measurements here. Not that I'm very good at measuring dolls. So from here to the waist is 3.5 inches, which I would need half an inch. That's 4.5 inches here. Kind of slope it up a little bit. Now at the shoulders, it does look like we have a little bit for shoulders, and we just cut out armholes. That's what it looks like to me. See how that looks. That looks surprisingly like the original illustration, except for I think I need bigger armholes. Alright, we have bodice. So I also want somewhat of a belt. And actually, I have all these scraps to use. So I need bands too, to like bind the neckline and bind the waistline. This is 2 inches. This is going to be my band. Go around her waist, and this should help go around her neckline. Alright, that's going to be the band. I almost feel that the belt should go that way too. I don't have a belt buckle, that's the problem. I don't have any belt buckle or anything I could make into a belt buckle that would fit her. I think my option is a hook and eye. We're going to cut a 10.5 inch waistband. Actually, I'm going to cut it 11.5 for seam allowance. I'm probably going to make it 1.25 inches. I'm not sure what I'm doing right now. I want a fancy belt that has like things that go down in the back. Like almost ties, but like decorative ties. I think if I do that, and I make it slowly a little bit smaller, those will be my ties. I said, now I need 2 more. While we're here, we're going to go ahead and cut out, I think we're going to do 2 shawls, just because we're a little bit behind on this doll, and I like to get some accessories done without having to devote a whole video to it. So I think I'm going to do is I'm going to take this scrap of blue wool that I have. We're going to do a half shawl and a square shawl. This one I had to find something to line it with, but we're going to put some black lace on the bottom. Then I have this, which is set to be something for me, but I can spare a little bit of it. I think I'm going to make it 14.5 inches long off the selvage. I think this one we're going to fringe. Alright, we're going to start with sleeves. So I'm going to sew sleeves straight down the side. And yes, we are making a late 1860s dress, and I'm using my 1870s machine. My 1860s machine, which does the same stitch, is covered in rust because it has not been restored yet. Plus, I feel that will most faster than even my modern machine. Alright, you can see this fabric is very prone to graveling out, so I am going to overcast the seam. And generally I don't overcast anything. I don't finish any of my edges. The vast majority of originals I've seen from the very early 1800s all the way up to about 1870s had no finishing on the inside, which is strange to us. They start, by 1880s you do see the vast majority of them, at least the ones I've seen, are finished on the inside. And nice dresses in the 60s are going to be finished like this, but because it is raveling, I definitely want to. I also just want to run a gathering thread at the top and bottom. Now I'm going to make a band. I think it's going to be about this big. I have no idea how big this is, but this is what we're going to do. I don't want it super tight. One thing about doll clothes is that they tend to be very small, and so sometimes doing things by machine can be a little bit difficult. We're going to try to stitch this by machine. I'm not entirely sure how that's going to work out for us. You know what? No, I'm going to do that by hand. I am doing that by hand. We're not messing with that. Alright, I'm just binding the sleeve. Sorry, the dog is right there, so she's moving the camera. But yeah, just binding the sleeve very quickly. I want to trim the sleeve with some braid. So I'm thinking about just doing a little just band of trim. That will at least give me a little bit of trim on that sleeve. It may not be fancy, but there really isn't space to do anything else. So these are going to look like more like bishop sleeves when they're done, which is fine. Alright, doing the shoulder seam. There's the sleeves, just lightly gathered on the top. Alright, still working on the bodice, so we have the sleeve sewn in. Right now I'm going to put it to a neck band. So I have gathered up, or put a gathering thread in, and we're just going to pull it. So now I can fold this over, hand stitch that down, and then we'll hand stitch the trim right on. I kind of wish I had done a plain body, and then we could have done the more fancy braiding. And then save the gather bodice for like a cotton dress. Little tiny bodice. Just getting there. On the belt. starting with the little flappy bits that go in the back. Turn this right side out, and then we'll start with some braiding. We're going to do braiding around the very edge, and then also do a little design in the middle towards the bottom. So this is what we have here with, I don't even know what to call this. I'm calling the flappy thing that goes, you know, with the belt. Now, of course, I have one more to do because this is a 2-for-1 deal. Alright, we're going to work on the skirt for the time being. I'm trying to get everything down to a point of handwork so I can go sit and watch a movie while I finish this all. So, I'm going to go ahead and sew the skirt. Wait to hem it. Usually that's not the last step. I'm going to wait for it to be the last step because if it's too long, I want to know before I hem it. Shawl number 1 is going to be one that's trimmed with lace. So it's going to be a half shawl, as evidenced by the fact it's only a triangle and not a square. And I have lined it with silk. So what I'm going to do is just go right ahead, sew most of it together, leaving a little bit of a gap. This is the shawl that we're going to fringe. I think I'm going to fringe about an inch, I think. We only have one more step till we're done with this. Fringe shawls are super, super easy. Alright, we are just putting on the bottom waistband. I'm not going to put any decoration on the waistband, as it will normally be covered with the belt, which is very fancy, or will be very fancy once we get it done. Other than closures, that is our bodice. I think it's better just to whip this closed first. So all I did is take a 1.25 inch piece as we cut and fold it in half, fold in the little ends. Now I could have, folded it right sides together, done it by machine, and then turned it inside out. But sometimes with these tiny little ones, it's really hard to turn them right side out. So I'm just going to whip it closed. And all of this seaming is going to be covered by trim in a moment anyway. But I think I'll set on the trim exactly how I did on the edge of the tie part, or the floppy bit that goes in the back. Still have not remembered the proper term for that. It's not a tie because we're not tying it. But I think we're going to do one on top, one on the bottom, or bottom, whichever one. Top, bottom, it doesn't matter what side's what. Alright, back to working on the belt. So I'm making a little button to hide the join. I don't know how I'm going to actually work it. I don't know if I'm going to, I'm not going to do a buttonhole. I don't know if I'm going to do hooks and eyes, or maybe just do a thread bar, so that, or a thread loop really, for something this big. But right now I just have a spiral of braiding on a bit of fabric, and I'm putting the excess fabric underneath. And I think this is going to be my button. I had a little China button I was going to cover with this, and I think I lost it. And I don't feel like finding another one, so I'm not sewing it on very well. I'm doing the ends very well, and then I'm doing a very large back stitch kind of in the middle. I'm trying to make sure it goes through, of course, the belt, but I don't want it to go all the way through and show from the front. So this is what I have for our belt now. So this will close, and this is from the front. You'll just see the belt, and then in the back you'll see these kind of falling over the hoop. And now I'm just sewing it on to the lovely little bodice. Now we're gonna finish the facing. So I just stitched it on, it's a normal facing like you would typically do for a 19th century dress. I couldn't find any scrap brown cotton, so we're using a print today. Now I'm commenced with the skirt. So I'm kind of just doing loops, and I'm not particularly, well, I am measuring somewhat. And like the rest of the braid work on this project, this is going to need to be hand done. All right, let's finish the last little bit of the dress. Actually, we have one more step. We have to do closures. I'm going to do a very thin tie. Alright, 2 more of those, and then we can work on the shawls. Alright, first shawl is the lace trimmed one. Now some laces, especially cotton heirloom laces, will have a drawstring or gathering thread already built in. Some of them don't, but this one apparently does, so that makes my life a little bit easier. And we're just going to kind of evenly distribute those gathers. And so although the lace would look better if it was a bit wider, we have a lace trimmed shawl. I also need to close up this little edge in just a moment. Alright, very last shawl, and the very last thing to do with this project. So what we are going to do is fringe the shawl, which is quite simple. We fringe several things on this channel, and it should actually not be very long because it's a very short project, which I always appreciate. So all it is taking the threads and pulling them out. It's again quite simple, and that's why we put the stitching in there, is to make sure it doesn't unravel any further. This is much preferable to doing an adult's shawl because that can kind of get tedious after a while, but these little short small projects are very fun to fringe. This is going to make a lovely shawl. I love this fabric to begin with, but it really is going to be lovely. I'm very excited about this. So it looks lovely. And all the braiding. So I'm excited to actually see it on the doll. And there we are. So I think that looks great on her. I think it looks great because, I don't know, her fancy hairstyle and all that. And the little rosette is just adorable. So there's her with her green shawl. It's probably a bit small for her. It probably should have gone about 2 more inches. I really am very pleased with that. I think overall it turned out super cute. But of course the main star of the show is the dress, which I probably could have gathered up her arms just a little bit more. It was already hard enough though to work in there, so it's a small hole. So for ease of working, I think that's probably the best option. But yeah, her beautiful, beautiful skirt. And I'm so glad I decided to do the belt. The belt just really makes the project, I think. It adds just enough back there. Anyhow, I am, again, very pleased with this project. Glad it's done, and she has a change of clothes now. I think next month we'll work on a silk dress for her. Just give her another outfit change. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe to the channel. Click that little bell notification so you're notified anytime I upload a new video. And as always, have a fantastic week, and I'll see you back here in the next video.